Hello everyone. I hope you guys are doing good. I welcome you all to another session. Okay, I welcome you all to another session of APSC main static marathon classes. And today we will be talking about certain important aspects of both art and culture as well as Indian history. So these are the topics we have for you today, and all these are important topics. All these topics are very important from the point of view of mains. Okay, these topics you might even get a few questions on these topics. So I want you guys to please take this video very seriously. Okay, please take this video very seriously. And these are the topics that we are going to cover today. That is, number one is Ashokan pillars, number two is history of stupa architecture, number three is Nagara style of temple architecture, and number four is Arayan mutiny. These are some of the most important topics. Okay, these are some of the most important topics from both art and culture as well as Indian history, and you may get questions on these topics. Okay, so let's get started. So first let's talk about Ashokan pillars. Okay, so what are these Ashokan pillars? So the first question that may arise in your minds is to why was Ashoka using pillars? Why was Ashoka even constructing pillars? See, basically we need to know one thing. Okay, you guys might be aware of Ashoka's Dhamma. Okay, what was Ashoka's Dhamma? Ashoka's Dhamma was not Ashoka trying to promote Buddhism. While certain sections of Dhamma were used for that purpose, but the most number of sections, okay, the larger part of Dhamma was all about what? The larger part of Dhamma was all about Ashoka trying to unite his kingdom. Okay, was the ultimate objective of Dhamma was to give political unity to his kingdom. Okay, so we can also say that Ashoka's Dhamma was what? It was a moral code of conduct. Okay, it was a moral code of conduct. Yes, certain sections of Dhamma, okay, certain sections of Dhamma had the religious angle to it. Certain sections of Dhamma had the religious angle to it. Okay, they had the religious angle to it. But if you look at Dhamma, very closely, if you observe Dhamma, you will see that Dhamma was largely it was largely a social code of conduct devoid of any religious inclination. Okay, some people even say that Ashoka was trying to promote what? Ashoka, with the help of his Dhamma, was trying to make Buddhism the state religion. Okay, that is absolutely that is unfounded, that cannot be proven. And writers like, for example, famous historians like Romila Thapar and other historians, okay, they have refuted this theory and they have given examples also. And yes, these examples point to the fact that Ashoka was not using Dhamma to make Buddhism his state religion, because certain parts of Dhamma, okay, Dhamma is a collection, okay, Dhamma is not one thing, it is a collection of many things, and most of the things which come under the category of Dhamma, they are not trying to promote Buddhism. They are talking about things which do not have a direct relationship with Buddhism. Okay, and most of the things which have been covered under Dhamma are secular in nature. So, see, now let's come back to the question, okay, which has been given here. Now, why was Ashoka using pillars? Ashoka was using pillars to promote his Dhamma. So, Ashoka's Dhamma was basically his teachings, which he wanted the people of his kingdom to learn, which he wanted the people of his kingdom to adopt. He just wanted to propagate. Okay, he wanted to propagate his ideas among his people. So, he came up with this idea. Okay, so he came up with this idea of promoting Dhamma with the help of pillars and rocks. So today in this session, we are not going to talk about the minor and the major rock edicts, but we are going to talk about the pillar edicts or pillars of Ashoka. And because ancient India, especially from the mains perspective, art and culture, okay, rather than asking questions on the political developments from ancient India, they will ask, if you look at the syllabus, art and culture of ancient India is very important. So we will also not talk about the political developments or political things which are associated with the Mauryan pillars, but we will look at the Mauryan pillars more from the perspective, okay, more from the perspective of what? More from the perspective of art and culture. Okay, so let's get started. Now that we know the reason Ashoka was using pillars for, now that the reason has been established, let's look at the artistic part of these pillars. Now, point number one, these pillars are said to have been these pillars are said to have been mined at a place called Chunar. These pillars are said to have been mined at a place called Chunar, which is located in the Mirzapur district of Uttar Pradesh. I mean, we all know Mirzapur. The name Mirzapur has been immortalized by a very famous web series, but Ashoka had immortalized Mirzapur way before that. Okay, and it is said that Ashokan pillars. And how can we say that Ashokan pillars must have been mined at Chunar? Because we have discovered what? We have discovered certain unfinished pillars. Okay, we have discovered certain unfinished pillars at this particular site, at the site of Chunar, which has led us, to conclude that Ashoka must have used this particular site to make his pillars. Okay, so Ashokan pillars are very, very important. And the second part of it includes what? We will talk about how did it look and all that. But first, let's try to understand, or let's learn the names of some of the most important Ashokan pillars. See, the names of some of the most important Ashokan pillars, how have we named them? We have named them based on the places where we had discovered those pillars. Okay, we have named these pillars based on the places where we had discovered those pillars. Okay, for example, Delhi Topra pillar. Okay, this pillar that I'm talking about was initially located at Topra in Haryana or near Haryana. It was brought to Delhi by Firoz Shah Tughlaq. It's a very important pillar. Then we have another pillar by the name of Delhi Meerut pillar. It was initially located at Meerut. It was again brought to Delhi by Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Then we have the famous Rumindei pillar. Okay, Rumindei is another name for Lumbini, which was the birthplace of Gautam Buddha, as we all know. That is another very important pillar. Then we have the Sarnath pillar. Then obviously we have the famous Allahabad pillar. Okay, we have the famous Allahabad pillar. It is also known as Kaushambi pillar, because Kaushambi is a term. Kaushambi is a term which is associated, or which is connected with the age of Mahajanapadas. It was one of the most developed cities of the age of Mahajanapadas. As we all know, age of Mahajanapadas is also known as the second phase of urbanization. And Kaushambi was one of the finest cities. It had what? It had forts, it had ramparts. We have discovered certain remains of that. Okay, so Kaushambi corresponds with modern day Allahabad. So this is known as what? This pillar is also known as Allahabad Kaushambi pillar. It is the same pillar. You know, this is the same pillar, or this pillar. Okay, this pillar was first used by Ashoka, and the same pillar was later used by Samudragupta. Okay, now unfortunately it is more famous. This particular pillar is more famous because of Samudragupta than Ashoka. But initially this pillar was used. Okay, this pillar was used by Ashoka to write his Dhamma, to write his message on it. Later it was used by Samudragupta. Okay, later it was used by, in fact, it was used by Samudragupta's court poet by the name of Harisena to write an inscription on Samudragupta. And again, see, this pillar is very, very interesting. Okay, the Allahabad Kaushambi pillar is very interesting. Now, for the second time, it was used by Samudragupta. And for the third time, it was again the same pillar. The same pillar was again used by Jahangir. So this pillar that I'm talking about, it also represents what? It also represents linguistic diversity. Why? Because you will see three different languages being used. Okay, you will see three different languages being used on this pillar. First, okay, as we all know, Ashoka, he predominantly used which particular script? In his edicts, he used the Brahmi script. He used the Brahmi script and the Prakrit language. So you will find the Brahmi script. Later, Samudragupta, okay, during the time of Samudragupta, when Harisena wrote a few lines on him, then he used the Sanskrit. Okay, he used the Sanskrit language. And later, during the Mughal era, when Jahangir used it, he used the Persian language. So this pillar, it's very, very fascinating. You know, it's extremely interesting and fascinating. This pillar was used by three different kings belonging to three different time periods. Okay, and using three different languages and scripts. I mean, isn't it fascinating? It is downright interesting. So, now that we know, the names of some of the most important Ashokan pillars, let's try to understand the architectural, or let's try to understand the artistic side of this pillar. See, I mean, Ashokan pillars, the first thing you need to know about Ashokan pillars from this point of view is that the bottommost part, or the most important part of the pillar was shaft. Okay, the most important part of the pillar was shaft. And the shaft, okay, shaft means the central body, okay, the central body of a pillar. Now see, the shaft Ashokan pillars, the shaft was tapered. Okay, now what is the meaning of taper or tapering shape? The shape, okay, what I'm trying to say is the shape of Ashokan shaft. Okay, what is shaft? Shaft is one part. Okay, shaft is one part of an Ashokan pillar. Okay, Ashokan pillar, it consisted, or it comprised several parts. Okay, one of the most important parts of an Ashokan pillar was shaft, which is the central part of a pillar, the main body of a pillar. Okay, and the shaft in an Ashokan pillar was always what? It was always tapering in size. What is the meaning of tapering? As and when the shaft moves up, okay, the shaft, as and when it is going up, it is getting narrower. Okay, okay, something like this. Please follow my hand movements. Okay, something like this. Okay, as and when it is going up, it is narrowing up. Okay, it is getting narrower. This is known as what? The shape is known as what? Taper. Okay, or tapering. This particular shape is known as tapered shaft or tapering shaft. So this was the shaft, okay, which was the bottommost part of an Ashokan pillar. On top of the shaft, okay, on top of the shaft, we had inverted lotus. On top of the shaft, we had what? Inverted lotus. Okay, we had a structure which looked like a what? Which looked like an inverted lotus. Okay, sometimes this inverted lotus is also known as the bell-shaped portion. Now there are different theories. Okay, now there are, scholars, they are not, they do not agree on one thing. Okay, a set of scholars consider it to be what? A set of scholars considers it to be an inverted lotus, while other scholars say that this is not an inverted lotus, but this is something which has been shaped like a bell. But okay, whatever it may be, okay, whatever it may be, you can consider it to be inverted lotus. According to your liking, you can either call it inverted lotus, or you can also call it a bell-shaped portion. So where do we have this bell-shaped portion or the inverted lotus? We have it right above the shaft. Okay, so if this is the shaft, here is where we have the inverted lotus. Here is where we have the inverted lotus, and on top of the inverted lotus, okay, this is the inverted lotus. On top of the inverted lotus, we have another structure by the name of abacus, A-B-A-C-U-S, abacus. And on top of the abacus, we have capital. So to cut a long story short, Ashokan pillar, it primarily consists of 4 parts. Okay, the bottommost part is shaft, which is surmounted by the inverted lotus, which is surmounted by abacus, which is further surmounted by the capital. Okay, and what is the meaning of capital? You must have seen, okay, you must have seen certain pillars where the topmost part, okay, the topmost part of an Ashokan pillar is what? Capital. The topmost part of an Ashokan pillar is known as capital, and okay, that part is known as capital. And in the case of Ashokan pillars, you will notice one thing, that the capital is always an animal. Okay, the capital is always an animal, and that is the topmost part. I will come to that. Okay, why did Ashoka use animals? I will come to that. But the topmost part was always an animal with respect to what? With respect to Ashokan pillars. Okay, that is a very, very interesting thing that you need to keep in mind. Now, so now that we know the compositions of Ashokan pillar, let's talk about something else. Now the next very, very important part of Ashokan pillars, what you guys need to know is that, often or when the Britishers were ruling over India, when India was under British rule, several colonial historians made the accusation. They accused Ashoka, okay, they accused Ashokan pillars of being a direct copy of what? They accused Ashokan pillars of being a direct copy of Persian pillars, and they called this particular act as an act of alien grafting. What is the meaning of alien grafting? When something is a copycat of something else. So what they tried to say is, like they did with all the good things which they saw in India, okay, they did not give the credit to Indians for all the good things which they saw in India, but for all the bad things that they saw in India, they gave the credit for all those bad things to Indians. But when it came to giving credit for good things, they did not give credit to Indians for those good things. They always credited foreigners. So the same mentality is being seen in this acquisition also, where colonial historians like Mortimer Wheeler, okay, is one of the most famous colonial historians. He was an archaeologist. He is accusing Ashokan pillars of being what? Of being a direct copy, of the Persian pillars. Now, if you get this question in the examination, how will you approach this? What will you write? You have to refute this. You have to prove through valid arguments. You have to prove that no, Ashokan pillars were not a direct copy of Persian pillars. And how will you prove it? So you have to make a thorough comparison between Ashokan pillars and Persian pillars. And you will have to chalk out differences and similarities. And you will have to prove that there were more differences between these two entities than similarities. If you can do that, you have proven. Okay, now let's first talk about the similarities between Ashokan pillars and Persian pillars. See, now the good thing is more than similarities, or the list of these similarities. The list of these similarities far outweighs the list of similarities. Okay, there was not much of a similarity between Ashokan pillars and Persian pillars. Okay, out of the very few similarities, there was one similarity, and that too was not a comprehensive similarity. And that similarity is that the Ashokan pillars, or let's say even the Mauryan pillars, okay, even the Mauryan pillars or Ashokan pillars, they always had this polish. They had a glossy touch to it. They had a glossy finish. Okay, gloss means something, some kind of a shine, lackluster. Okay, some kind of a luster, not lackluster, but they had some kind of a luster. Okay, they had some kind of a luster, or they had some kind of a shine, which we call what? Glossy touch. Or which you it's better if you use the word polish. They had some kind of a polish. And Persian pillars also had some kind of a polish. Okay, as of now, consider this to be a similarity. Now let's talk about the dissimilarities, okay, which are far more important than similarities. Now talking about dissimilarities, this similarity number one, okay, remember when I spoke about the shaft, okay, I told you guys Ashokan shaft was tapering in shape, okay. Ashokan shaft was tapering in shape. On the other hand, Persian pillars did not have the shape, okay. The shaft of the Persian pillars, they also had a shaft, okay. Every pillar will have a shaft, but the shaft of the Persian pillars was cylindrical in shape. It was not tapered like in the case of Ashoka. Okay, it was what? It was cylindrical. Now let's talk about the inverted lotus portion. Ashokan pillars had only one. In all the Ashokan pillars, you will see only one inverted lotus, or only one bell-shaped portion. There was only one inverted lotus or bell-shaped portion. But in the case of Persian pillars, there were two inverted lotus, not one. Okay, this is dissimilarity number two. Now let's talk about the capital. Now in the case of Ashokan pillar, okay, in the case of Ashokan pillar, the capital was always a human, the capital was always an animal capital. Okay, you could always see an animal. See, what was capital? Capital was the topmost part of an Ashokan pillar. And in the case of Ashokan pillars, that capital was always an animal capital. Ashoka used certain animals like lion, elephant, okay, like lion, elephant, bull, and all those animals were used by Ashoka. And Ashoka was very choosy. He did not just pick a random animal. All those animals which had some kind of a socio-religious significance in India, Ashoka was using only those animals. Like for example, he was also using elephant. Now, animals like horses and elephant, they have a direct relationship with Gautam Buddha. Okay, now white elephant is a symbol, okay, or white elephant symbolizes the birth of Gautam Buddha. Horse symbolizes the great departure of Gautam Buddha. Mahabhinishkraman we call it, when Gautam Buddha left his palace, okay, for what? For the search of the ultimate truth. So Ashoka is seen, he is very wisely choosing the animals. Lion, again, okay, lion has always had a very deep connection with the Indian soil. So all these animals are being picked by Ashoka. Okay, with a lot of thought. He's not picking them without thinking. But on the other hand, what will you get to see in Persian pillars? The pillars, the Persian pillars, what do they have? See, Persian pillars also have a capital. But what are they using as capitals? They are using human capitals. Okay, on the very top of a Persian pillar, you will see humans. But in the case of Ashokan pillars, you will always see an animal. And not just any animal, but animals which have a deep connection with India. Okay, with India. This is another dissimilarity. Now let's talk about another very important dissimilarity. See, this is about the polish. Now, polish, although, if you remember, I told you there is one similarity, that similarity 2, okay, that similarity 2 is not very comprehensive. It is for this reason that I called it incomprehensive. Why? Because although we have the use of polish in both these pillars, okay, although we can see usage of polish in both these pillars, but now it has been proven, okay, recent researchers have brought this to light, okay, recent researchers or recent findings have brought this to light, that the polish which was used by Ashoka in his pillars, that the polish which was used by Ashoka in his pillars was an indigenous polish. Okay, it was an indigenous polish. How can we say that? Because it was the same polish. It was the same polish which was used in the case of northern black polished ware, that is NBPW. And NBPW, as we all know, is a kind of pottery that was in use in India during the age of Mahajanapadas. And as we all know, age of Mahajanapadas preceded, it came before the Mauryan Empire. So what we can conclude from this is that that particular polish was in use in India from a long time. So Ashoka was not copying it from the Persian pillars. Okay, Ashoka was using, yes, he was using pillar just like the Persians, but that pillars, yes, he was using a polish just like the Persian pillars, but that polish had an Indian origin. It was an indigenous polish. It was not the same Persian polish. Okay, it was an Indian polish that Ashoka was using for his pillars. Okay, to make things even more convincing, we have also find certain evidences which point towards the fact that the recipe for this polish has been mentioned in an ancient book by the name of Apastampa Sutra. There's a book by the name of Apastampa Sutra, and that particular book talks about the recipe as to how we need to make this polish. So as we saw, because of these similarities, we can refute the accusation. Okay, the accusation flies in the face of colonial historians that Mauryan pillars were a direct copy of Ashokan, they were a direct copy of Persian pillars, or Ashokan pillars were a direct copy, or they were an act of what? Alien grafting. We can refute this based on these dissimilarities. Is that clear? Now let's proceed to the next question. See, the next topic is also very important, and it has a direct connection with art and culture. History of stupa architecture. Now, in this particular session, I'm not going to talk about the stupa. We are going to talk about, I'm not going to tell you how does a stupa look like and all that. Okay, we are not going to discuss about the various parts of a stupa, because all that has been discussed already in one of my previous sessions. So I would request you, those of you who have not seen, those of you who did not see that session of mine, I would request you to go to that session. You will find that I have discussed about the various components of a stupa at length in a detailed manner. So I once again request you to go through all our videos, and in one of those videos I have talked about this at length. So please go through that video. However, in this particular session, we are going to touch upon certain other facets of stupa architecture. Now, what are those facets? Let's have a look at them. See, so basically, As we all know, what is the history of stupas? Now this time UPSC, in the UPSC prelims also, there was one question based on the history of stupa. Okay, there was one question based on the history of stupa. Now see, the first thing that you guys need to know about stupa, okay, the first thing that you guys need to know about stupa is that stupa is not something which was discovered by Gautam Buddha. Stupa, the concept of stupa was not something which was started by Gautam Buddha. Stupa, or the concept of stupa, predates Gautam Buddha. What is the meaning of that? It existed even before Gautam Buddha's birth, or Gautam Buddha saw. Okay, he did not start. Okay, when he was alive, he saw the concept of stupas. But here lies the catch. Here lies the catch. The stupas were meant for a different purpose. Now we are not talking about the Buddhist stupas. The stupas, what I am trying to say, they were not always associated with Buddhism. They got associated with Buddhism only after the death of Gautam Buddha. And it is said that when Gautam Buddha saw these stupas, before they became associated with Buddhism, Gautam Buddha is said to have expressed, okay, he is said to have expressed a desire. He is said to have expressed, is said to have said that, or it is believed that he expressed his desire of his ashes being buried in the stupa. Okay, he desired of being buried, he desired of his ashes being buried in a stupa. So after his death, stupas were built, and from that particular time onwards, stupas, they became associated with Buddhism. But having said that, although stupas pre-existed Buddhism, okay, or they predated Buddhism, we cannot deny one thing. We cannot deny the fact that Buddhist, the concept of stupa was, okay, the concept of stupa reached its climax only under Buddhism. Stupa became a household term. It was made a household term by Buddhism. Okay, and what were the now the stupas? See, the stupas during the time of Buddha, or even before the birth of Buddha, when stupas were in use, even then they were considered to be sacred. Okay, they were considered to be sacred. They were venerated. They were places of worship. But one thing needs to be kept in mind: they did not just get associated with Buddhism. Okay, now see the history of stupa architecture. Okay, so history of stupa architecture. What do we mean by this stupa architecture? We are primarily concerned about what? Buddhist stupa architecture. We do not have to know much about the concept of stupa that predated Buddhism. We have to be concerned about the concept of stupa which came into existence, or which started, okay, or which started after the death or Mahaparinibbana of Gautam Buddha. It is saying, so what happened after the death of Gautam Buddha? After the death of Gautam Buddha, okay, then the ruler of Magad was Ajatashatru. Okay, he was the king of Ajatashatru. So Ajatashatru is said to have built, initially Ajatashatru is said to have built 8 stupas at certain important places, like for example Rajagriha. Okay, like for example he built one stupa at Rajgriha, he built another stupa at the birthplace of Gautam Buddha, Lumbini. So in total he built 8 stupas. In total, Ajatashatru, okay, who was very, very impressed and who became a Buddhist, he is said to have built 8 stupas. The next important development, and a big development, a very big development in Buddhist or in stupa architecture takes place during the reign of Ashoka. We all know Ashoka got attracted to this particular religion and he became a Buddhist also. We all know that. Now, after Ashoka got attracted to Buddhism, Ashoka initially he's said to have been a Shaivite. Okay, then he got attracted to Buddhism. After all that happened, Ashoka is said to have built 84,000 stupas at various places. Okay, now the number seems to be quite exaggerated, and 84,000, we do not have any historical evidence for this either. Mainly the Buddhist religious books, like for example Ashok Vadan and Divya Vadan, they give us this number. Okay, Ashok Vadan, Divya Vadan are also Buddhist religious books. Okay, the Buddhism religion, it has got a lot of religious books. Okay, not just the Tripitaka. Please keep that in mind. Okay, Tripitaka is just a set of three of the oldest Buddhist books. But with time, okay, with time, a lot of books got associated with the Buddhist religion. And two such important books, okay, two such important books were Ashok Vadan and Divya Vadan. Now, so these books, okay, these books give us this number. Now, 84,000 stupas. It's not a matter of joke. Okay, 84,000 stupas. And some of these stupas, okay, some of these stupas were located at, for example, some of these stupas were located at Sanchi, then they were located at Amravati, in all these places. Okay, in all these places. Okay, now, see, now, so basically, before proceeding further, you need to know what is a stupa. A stupa is, and now I am talking about the Buddhist stupa. We are not concerned about the previous concept of stupa. Okay, we are concerned about the Buddhist concept of stupa. Now, these stupas, what did they contain? They contain the relics of Gautam Buddha and the other important monks or bhikshuks or bhikshunis, I mean the other important monks of Buddhism. Okay, what is the meaning of relics? Now, relics could either include what? Relics could either include bodily remains. Okay, relics can be bodily remains, or they can also be belongings. They can also be belongings or possessions which were once used by Gautam Buddha and the other important saints of Buddhism. Okay, so these things were buried. These things were buried somewhere in the stupa. These things were buried somewhere in the stupa. Somewhere in the stupa, and because of this feature, stupas began to be worshipped by the Buddhists. Okay, because of these features, stupas began to be worshipped by the Buddhists, and stupas as a whole, the structure symbolized what? As a whole, the structure symbolized the Mahaparinibbana. Okay, Mahaparinibbana of Gautam Buddha, or the death of Gautam Buddha. Okay, I mean various parts of a stupa symbolize various things. Because we have spoken about this, I'm not repeating it. Okay, there are various components of a stupa, and each component of a stupa has a meaning. But overall, the entire structure indicates what? The entire structure symbolizes the Mahaparinibbana of Gautam Buddha. Okay, now that we have dealt with all these things, now proceed further. Now, let me tell you about few of the most important stupas. Okay, few of the most important stupas that we see in India today, or that are found in India today. Now, one of the oldest stupas, or the oldest stupa, okay, the oldest stupa is located, okay, the oldest stupa is located at the Siddharth Nagar district of Uttar Pradesh. And the name of this particular stupa is Pipra Hua Stupa. Now, what is the speciality of the Pipra Hua Stupa? It is located in the Siddharth Nagar district of Uttar Pradesh. It is said that, or it is believed that the Pipra Hua Stupa contains the relics of Gautam Buddha himself. Can you imagine this? Okay, it is believed that the Pipra Hua Stupa contains the relics of Gautam Buddha himself. Okay, next in line is another very famous stupa by the name of Bharhut Stupa. Bharhut Stupa was discovered by none other than the great Alexander Cunningham, who is also known as the father of Indian archaeology, because he was the one who established the Archaeological Survey of India in the later part of the 19th century CE. Okay, Alexander Cunningham was the one who discovered Bharhut Stupa, and Bharhut Stupa was initially built by whom? It was initially built by Ashoka. Okay, Bharhut Stupa was also built by Ashoka, then it was again built by some other, Bharhut Stupa has been built by many kings. Okay, it was again rebuilt, or it was again rebuilt by a Shunga ruler. But unfortunately today, Bharhut Stupa has not survived. Okay, today Bharhut Stupa has not survived. Today what we will get to see is only few remains of Bharhut Stupa, which have been preserved where? Which have been preserved in the Calcutta Museum. Okay, which have been preserved in the Calcutta Museum. So that was Bharhut Stupa. Next, another very important stupa was Amravati Stupa. Okay, another very important stupa was Amravati Stupa. Amravati Stupa was first constructed again by Ashoka. Where is Amravati located? Now, UPSC this time had asked another question, which is, although it was not directly related to Amravati, but it was related to a place by the name of Dhanya Katak. And all these places, Dhanya Katak, Amravati, Nagarjuna Konda, they became, okay, they became important Buddhist centers during the reign of the Satavahanas. So Amravati is in Andhra. Okay, Amravati is in the Andhra region. And see, so Amravati Stupa is very, very important. It was initially built by Ashoka. But see, remember this. Just now I've said that these three places became very, very important Buddhist centers due to the patronage being provided to Buddhism by the Satvahana kings, and a Satvahana king by the name of Pulumai. Who was Pulumai? He was the son of the great Satvahana king Gautami Putra Satkarni. See, the Satvahanas claimed themselves to be Brahmins. They claimed themselves to be Brahmins, but despite their religious affiliation to Brahminism, they did not hesitate to patronize Buddhism. And one example in this particular direction is that Pulumai, who was a Satvahana king, he beautified, he renovated, he refurbished the Amravati Stupa. And how did he do that? He covered the entire stupa according to scholars, according to historians, according to archaeologists. This king by the name of Pulumai covered the entire stupa with marble slabs. I mean, although those marble slabs today they unfortunately do not cover the stupa anymore, because the stupa is not, today it has not remained in one of its greatest forms, in one of its impressive forms. But we have found those marble slabs lying very close to the stupa, okay, which has led the historians, which has led the scholars to conclude that these marble slabs must have been used. Okay, these marble slabs must have been used to cover the stupa. And we have also found out that it was done by Pulumai. It was done by Pulumai. And so there's one more thing that you guys need to know regarding the Amravati Stupa, and that one thing is what? That one thing is the fact that Amravati Stupa, if you go to Amravati Stupa, you will see that in this particular stupa, Lord Gautam Buddha has been represented. He has been represented in an iconic as well as an iconic form. What is the meaning of iconic form? Iconic form means that if you go to this particular stupa, you will find images of Gautam Buddha, as well as you will see that Gautam Buddha has also been represented in the form of symbols. Now, aniconic phase. The aniconic phase was a part of the Hinayan Buddhism, when it was considered to be a taboo. When it was considered to be a taboo to represent Gautam Buddha in the form of an image, or to give a human representation to Buddha. It was not allowed. So, aniconic phase of Buddhism is that phase when Gautam Buddha was not allowed to be represented. So, if they are not allowing Gautam Buddha to be represented, something has to be represented. So, they came up with this idea of using symbols in place of Gautam Buddha. Okay, I've spoken about this also in one of my previous classes. Again, please go through my videos. Okay, so this was the Amravati Stupa, very, very important stupa. Next in line is yet another very famous stupa, Nagarjuna Konda. Nagarjuna Konda is again Nagarjuna Konda Stupa. Nagarjuna Konda again is a place which became very, very famous during the time of the Satvavahanas. They were the ones who promoted this particular place, Nagarjuna Konda. Nagarjuna Konda again is located in the same Andhra region. And Nagarjuna Konda, okay, Nagarjuna Konda Stupa, Nagarjuna Konda Stupa was built by a ruler by the name of Layati Kesari. It was built by a ruler by the name of Layati Kesari. Which dynasty did he belong to? He was an Ikshvaku king. He was an Ikshvaku king. I mean, Ikshvaku were somehow related to the Satvavahanas. Okay, they were an offshoot of the Satvavahanas. Ikshvaku, he was an Ikshvaku ruler who built this particular stupa and named the stupa after Nagarjuna Konda. Who was Nagarjuna? Okay, he named this particular stupa after Nagarjuna, the great Buddhist saint Nagarjuna. In Mahayana form of Buddhism, Nagarjuna is considered, in terms of importance, he is considered only next to Buddha. Okay, in terms of significance, in terms of religious importance, Nagarjuna in Mahayana Buddhism is considered only next to Buddha in terms of importance. Can you imagine the significance and importance of Nagarjuna? Nagarjuna is the same person who gave a solid philosophical basis, to Mahayana form of Buddhism. And this, his philosophy is known as what? His philosophy is known as Shunyavad. Okay, his philosophy is known as Shunyavad or Madhyamika Marg, Nagarjuna. Okay, he enjoys a very special place. He enjoys a very special place in Mahayana form of Buddhism. Okay, and now let's talk about the most important stupa. Okay, and the most important stupa. Okay, the most important stupa in the opinion of many scholars, or if you Google stupa, okay, if you Google stupa, there is every likelihood of Google showing you this particular stupa right at the very top or right at the very beginning. And this stupa, now I'm talking about the Sanchi stupa. See, if you go to Sanchi, as we all know, Sanchi is located in Madhya Pradesh. Now, and one of the biggest attractions of Madhya Pradesh, okay, Madhya Pradesh's tourism department, it relies a lot on Sanchi stupas. Now see, I use the word stupas. Why? Because if you go to this place, you will see that there is not one, but there are 3 stupas. Now let's talk about these stupas one by one. Now, out of these 3 stupas, the most important stupa, which was built by Ashok, is known as what? Mahastupa or the Great Stupa. You know, Ashok had built this particular stupa, and Ashoka's stupas used to be very simple. That is another thing which you need to keep in mind. Ashoka, he did not believe in, or he did not use too much of decoration in the stupas. His stupas were simple mud structures. Okay, and the railings of a stupa, okay, which we call Vedika, the railings were also made of what? The railings were also made of wood. The railings of Ashokan stupas were also made of wood. And Ashoka, see, I must have told you earlier about one of the most important parts of a stupa, that is Toran, or the gateways through which you have to enter in order to go to the stupa. Ashoka did not even build Toran in the Sanchi stupa. Okay, so earlier, if you go to Sanchi stupa today, you will find a Toran, but Ashoka was not the one. If you go to the Great Stupa or the Mahastupa of Sanchi, you will see a Toran. No doubt about it, but Ashoka was not the builder of the Toran. I will tell you, okay, I will tell you in a bit from now as to who constructed that particular Toran. But Ashoka, the point I am trying to make here is, Ashokan's stupas were very simple in appearance. Okay, now this is the Great Stupa, and Sanchi stupas are located in the Raisen district of Madhya Pradesh. Okay, now see, now this particular Mahastupa or the Great Stupa, which was built by Ashoka, is said to have been destroyed by the founder of the Shung dynasty, that is Pushyamitra Shung. Okay, Pushyamitra Shung is said to have destroyed the stupa which was built by Ashoka. Okay, now after having been destroyed by Pushyamitra Shung, his son Agnimitra Shung, rebuilds that particular stupa. He rebuilds that particular stupa and makes significant changes to that particular stupa. And what are those significant changes? Number one, what were his contributions? Number one, he enlarges the stupa to twice its size. He makes it double in terms of its size. He enlarges the size of the stupa which was originally built by Ashoka to twice its original size. He enlarges that. Other than that, he replaces the wooden railings of Ashoka with stone railings. As we know, stone is more lasting in nature. Okay, stone in comparison to wood, it is more lasting. Wood is perishable. So he replaces the railings of that particular stupa. He replaces the wooden railings with stone railings. And number 3, he also builds torans. He also builds 4 torans in 4 different in 4 different sides of the stupa. Okay, Agnimitra Shung is the one who added Toran, who added the concept of Toran, or who added Torans to the Sanchi stupa. And he did one more thing. Okay, Agnimitra Shung, he did one more thing. Apart from renovating and enlarging the original stupa at Sanchi, which was built by Ashoka, he Agnimitra Shung, he constructed 2 more stupas at the same place. He constructed 2 more stupas at the same place, because of which, if you go to if you go to Sanchi today, you will find 3 stupas. And the stupas at Sanchi are also believed to contain the relics of some of the most important Buddhist monks, some of whom were contemporaries of Gautam Buddha. Okay, these relics were being, these relics were being taken by the Britishers along with them. But after India's independence, they were brought back to India. After much of a battle, they were brought back to India. So this much you have to know about stupa architecture, and the rest has been discussed in one of my previous sessions already regarding the stupa architecture, regarding various parts of a stupa and all that. So I would request you guys once again to go through that video of mine, and there is every possibility, there is a high likelihood of the examiners asking at least one question on stupa architecture this time in the upcoming APSC mains. So please take my suggestion very seriously. Okay, now see, now the next topic in line is Nagara style of temple architecture. Okay, Nagara style of temple architecture, very important. Now, what is the meaning of Nagara style of temple architecture? Today I have chosen Nagara style of temple architecture because in one of my previous classes I have already covered what Dravida style of temple architecture. So these are basically different types of temple architecture. As we all know, there are temple architecture can be divided into 3 broad categories. Okay, temple architecture can be divided into 3 broad categories. Number 1, the Nagara style. Number 2 is the Dravida style, and number 2 is the Vesara style. What is the difference? Nagara style is largely confined to North India. Dravida style is largely confined to, all these styles are what? All these styles are of temple architecture. The way a temple is being built, the various designs you get to see, okay, in a temple. Dravida style, it was largely confined to South India, deep South India, okay. And Vesara style of temple architecture, Vesara style of temple architecture was confined to the area between these 2 styles of temple architecture. That is, if you talk about the Vesara style of temple architecture, it covered the regions of, let's say, modern day Telangana, modern day Andhra Pradesh, okay, the Ghataprabha and Malaprabha river valley. Also, sites like Pattadakkal, also the area of the Chalukyan kingdom, okay, also the capital of the Chalukyas, Vatapi. So all those areas are very important when it comes to Vesara style of temple architecture. And the word Vesara, okay, the word Vesara itself has come from a Sanskrit word, Mishran. Okay, so Vesara style of temple architecture is that style of temple architecture which draws influences from both Nagara style of temple architecture and Dravida style of temple architecture. Okay, so today we will talk about the Nagara style of temple architecture, very important. See, Nagara style of temple architecture is also that style of temple architecture which covers which covers the largest part of India. Okay, let me put it this way. Nagara style of temple architecture is that style of temple architecture that covers the largest part of India. Okay, or it is the most extensive style of temple architecture. It covers almost 2/3 of India's geographical area. Almost 2/3 of India's geographical area is covered by Nagara style of temple architecture. Now, because of its extensive nature, Nagara style of temple architecture, okay, because of its extensive nature, Nagara style of temple architecture, it has a lot of variations. Okay, I will talk about those variations also. Now, before talking about those variations, let me first tell you certain important features of a Nagara style of temple architecture or temples which follow this particular style. See, number one, a very, very important feature of this particular style is that you will always see that temples or the main shrines are built on a raised platform. The main shrines of a temple built in this particular pattern or style, the main shrine of, the main temple is always located on a raised platform. The main temple is always located on a raised platform. Okay, important feature number one. Important feature number two is that, the river goddesses, Yamuna and Ganga are placed. River goddesses Yamuna and Ganga are placed at the entrance of the temples built in this particular style. Okay, river goddesses of Yamuna and Ganga are placed at the entrance of temples built in this particular pattern or style. Okay, this is important feature number two. Important feature number three. Now, the Garbhagriha. Okay, what is Garbhagriha? I've said this earlier also in one of my previous sessions. Garbhagriha is the most important part of a temple. It is that part of a temple which houses the idols, which has the idols. Okay, it is known as Garbhagriha. So, point number three is that the outer walls, okay, in the temples which follow this style or which have been built following this particular style, you will see that the outer walls of a Garbhagriha, are richly decorated. Okay, the outer walls, Bahiror Para, Garbhagriha Bilak, they are richly decorated, but the inner walls of a Garbhagriha, okay, the inner walls of a Garbhagriha in a temple built in the Nagara style of architecture, you will see that the inner walls are always plain and empty. They do not have any decoration. Now, one of the most important features of Nagara style of temple architecture is also, now let's talk about the main parts of a temple. Okay, so the most important part, okay, now, or let's say one of the most important parts, okay, one of the most important parts of a temple built in this particular style is the Shikhar. Okay, it is the Shikhar, or let's begin with Garbhagriha. So, like I said, Garbhagriha is the most important part of a temple, okay, be it Nagara style temple or be it Dravida style temple. Garbhagriha is present in all temples, be it any temple, Garbhagriha will always be present. So, the first important part of a temple built in this particular style is also Garbhagriha. Okay, Garbhagriha is that part which has the idols, okay, which has the idol or idols. So, you can well imagine the importance of that part. On top of Garbhagriha, okay, on top of Garbhagriha, you will find a structure. In this particular case, you will find a structure which is known as Shikhar, right on top of the Garbhagriha. Or we can also say that the Shikhar surmounts the Garbhagriha. The Shikhar surmounts the Garbhagriha, and right in front of the Garbhagriha, you will find a space where the devotees can assemble. And that particular space is known as mandap. Okay, that particular space is known as mandap, or in English we call it portico. Okay, we call it what? Portico. Now, let's come back to Shikhar. On top of Shikhar, you will find another structure by the name of Amalak. On top of Shikhar, you will find another structure by the name of Amalak. On top of Amalak, you will find Kalash. Okay, Kalash, as we all know, Kalash, it is a structure which is shaped like a pot. Okay, on top of Amalak, you will find Kalash, and at the very top, you will find a Dhwaj or flag. And Dhwaj has the image of a particular god. And what does that indicate? It indicates the dominance of a particular god in a particular area. These are some of the most important features. of the Nagara style of temple architecture. Now that we have talked about, now that we have spoken about the now that we have spoken about the most important features, let's talk about the regional variation that I was talking about. Now you need to understand why do we get to see so much of regional variation? Because Nagara style of temple architecture is the most extensive style of temple architecture. It covers almost 2/3 of India's geography. So it is very natural for this particular style to have regional variation. What is the meaning of regional variation? For example, when this style, when it got spread to other regions, so this particular style got influenced, okay, got influenced by the local styles, okay, by the local styles. So see, let's start with, okay, the first important regional variation of Nagara style of temple architecture is the Bundelkhand style, okay, the Bundelkhand style. Now the Bundelkhand style, Bundelkhand, okay, Bundelkhand is a very, very important, Bundelkhand is a very, very important area. It lies somewhere, it lies somewhere in the border, okay, it lies somewhere in the border between Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, okay, Bundelkhand. Now okay, now we have to give the example of a very important temple which is located in this particular area. Okay, we have to give the example of a very important temple which is located in this particular area, and that is the Khajuraho group of temples. Okay, that is the Khajuraho group of temples. Now Khajuraho group of temples, Khajuraho group of temples, it is not just one temple. See, the name itself is Khajuraho group. How many temples are there? There are as many as 25 temples. Okay, there are as many as 25 temples in the Khajuraho group of temples. By the way, Khajuraho group of temples is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Okay, it is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And Khajuraho group of temples, these temples are dedicated to Shaivism, Vaishnavism, as well as Jainism. So, Khajuraho group of temples is dedicated to two religions, Hinduism and Jainism. And if you talk about the two most important sects of Hinduism, those are Shaivism and Manadhara. These temples are dedicated, okay, these temples are dedicated to two of the three most important sects of Hinduism. That is Shaivism and Vaishnavism. And other than that, certain temples are also dedicated to Jainism. And Khajuraho group of temples, the most important temple out of these 25 temples, one of the most important temples is Khanderiya Mahadev temple. Okay, one of the most important temples out of these 25 temples is Khanderiya Mahadev temple. And what are Khajuraho group of temples famous for? They are world famous for their erotic display. Okay, they are world famous for erotic display. So now there was a reason. Okay, there was a reason behind Khajuraho group of temples displaying eroticity, or why did it do it? Okay, why did it do it? It did it because Hinduism talks about 4 life goals. So a very practical thing, because Hinduism is a practical religion. It talks about 4 life goals, and out of those 4 life goals, okay, Kama, Moksha, Artha, okay, these 3, okay, so like this there are 4 life goals, okay, there are 4 life goals, and all these 4 life goals are important. Each and every goal is important. These are the life goals of every individual, and only if that particular individual fulfills all these things, then that life is considered to be complete. Okay, then that life or that particular life is considered to be complete, and one of these life goals is Kama. Okay, one of the life goals is Kama. So Khajuraho group of temples, they have those erotic images, or they have those erotic sculpture, mainly to remind human beings of the 4 life goals. Okay, too deep. Okay, too deep. It is very easy to draw conclusions, but you have to know the reason behind this. Okay, you have to know the reason behind this. Now, so this was the first important regional variation of the Nagara style of temple architecture. That is what the Bundelkhand style. Okay, Bundelkhand style. Then, I mean, another very important regional style. Another very important regional style is the Gujarat style or the Solanki style. Because why do we call it Solanki style? Because Gujarat at this point in time was under the control of the Solankis. Okay, Solankis. We also sometimes call them Chalukyas of Gujarat. Okay, you can, because I'm not talking about the great Chalukyan kingdom, because with time the great Chalukyan kingdom, they got divided into many wings, and one of those wings, okay, like there were Eastern Chalukyas, there were Western Chalukyas. So the Western Chalukyas were also known as the Solankis of Gujarat. Okay, so I'm talking about those Chalukyas. Now, at this point in time, Gujarat was under the control of the Chalukyas or the Solankis of Gujarat. Now let's talk about some of the most important temples that you will get to see in this region. Okay, number one is the Somnath temple. Okay, Somnath temple is a very, very famous temple. It is dedicated to Somnath or Lord Shiva. Now this temple is known as what? This temple is known as Eternal Shrine. This temple is known as Eternal Shrine. It was built by Bhim Dev Solanki. And unfortunately, this temple was destroyed by whom? This temple was destroyed by Mahmud of Ghazni. Okay, this temple was destroyed by Mahmud of Ghazni during his last invasion to India, which happened in the year 1026 CE. It was in that particular year that Mahmud of Ghazni destroyed this temple. Why did he destroy this temple? He wanted to loot this temple, because this temple had rich possessions. Okay, this temple's treasury had a lot of wealth. Okay, so this temple was destroyed by Mahmud of Ghazni. Now this is a very important temple. Okay, Somnath temple is a very, very, very important temple. And see, Somnath temple has something. Okay, Somnath temple also has an arrow-like thing, which is known as barn. Okay, an arrow-like thing, and it is said that if you keep moving south, from the arrow is pointing towards a certain direction. And if you keep moving south of that particular direction, you will reach Antarctica. It is said that you will reach Antarctica without coming across. Okay, you will reach Antarctica without coming across a single mass of land. Okay, and this particular structure is known as what? Barn Stump. Okay, it is known as what? Barn Stump. Another very famous temple of Gujarat is known as what? Sun Temple, which is located at Modhera. It was also built by Bhimdev Solanki. Sun Temple. Okay, it's a Sun Temple at Modhera. And one of the most spectacular features of this Sun Temple is a part known as what? Surya Kund. Now what is this Surya Kund? Surya Kund is basically a step well. Okay, a step well is a well. Okay, a step well, you need to climb down. Okay, you need to climb down a flight of stairs in order to fetch water. Okay, you need to climb down a number of steps in order to fetch water. Okay, water lies deep below. So that is known as a step well. So Surya Kund is basically a step well, but this step well is different. As you climb down the stairs, you will find 108 smaller shrines on the stairs of this Surya Kund. Okay, you will find what? You will find 108 smaller shrines built. Small mane horu mondir. Okay, horu mondir banwa ase. Kot banwa ase? He siri bilakor oporat. They are built on the steps of the Surya Kund. Okay, and Surya Kund is a part of the Sun Temple at Modhera. So this is the Kaling style. Now let's talk about the next very, very important style, that is the Rajasthan style. Okay, now if you I'm so sorry, this was not the Kaling style, this was the Gujarat style. Both the Somnath temple and the Sun temple at Modhera. Now let's talk about the Rajasthan style. See, at this point in time, Rajasthan also came under the control of the Solankis of Gujarat or the Western Chalukyas. Okay, they were the ones who were controlling this area. Now, if we talk about Rajasthan, one of the most famous temples of Rajasthan, where you will get to see a glimpse of Nagara style of temple architecture, is the famous Dilwara group of temples. Okay, there are in total there are 9 temples. Okay, these are Jain temples. Okay, Dilwara group of temples. These are Jain temples, and out of these 9 temples, we have to know the names of 2 temples. Another very important feature of the Dilwara group of temples is what? They are using white marble. Okay, what is the principal building material in the Dilwara group of temples? White marble. And the 2 most important temples here are, okay, the 2 most important temples here are Vimal Vasahi and Luna Vasahi. Okay, Vimal, V-I-M-A-L, V-A-S-A-H-I, Vimal Vasahi, and the other is Luna, L-U-N-A, V-A-S-A-H-I. Vimal Vasahi and Luna Vasahi. Now, Vimal Vasahi, see, another very interesting feature of the Dilwara group of Jain temples is that, okay, the temples have been patronized not by kings, but they have been built by wealthy merchants. They have been built by what? They have been built by whom? They have been built by wealthy and rich merchants. Okay, rich and wealthy merchants. For example, the temple of Vimal Vasahi. The temple of Vimal Vasahi, which is dedicated to Rishabhnath or Adinath, the first Tirthankara. Okay, in Jainism, he is considered to be the first Tirthankara, Adinath or Rishabhnath. Rishabdev, I'm so sorry. So, Vimal Vasahi is dedicated to, the temple of Vimal Vasahi is of whom? Is of Rishabhnath's temple. Okay, Rishabdev's temple or Adinath's temple. And this particular temple was built by a wealthy merchant by the name of Vimal Shah. Okay, Vimal Vasahi, this temple was built by a very wealthy merchant by the name of Vimal Shah, who later went on to become a minister of the Western Chalukyas. Okay, Vimal Vasahi. And the other most important temple, okay, of the Dilwara group of temples, located where? Located in the Mount Abu area of Rajasthan. What is Mount Abu? Mount Abu again is a very interesting place. Mount Abu is the only hill station of Rajasthan. Rajasthan does not have any hill station. Okay, it's a very arid region, but Mount Abu is a hill station. It is the only hill station of Rajasthan, and Dilwara group of temples are located in the Mount Abu region of Rajasthan. Now, talking about Luna Vasahi. Okay, Luna Vasahi is the next most important temple of the Dilwara group of temples, and Luna Vasahi was also constructed by 2 rich merchants. Okay, Vastupal and Tejpal. Okay, Vastupal and Tejpal, these were the names of the builders. These were the names of the people who constructed the Luna Vasahi temple. And Luna Vasahi temple is whose temple? Luna Vasahi temple is the temple of Neminath. And who is Neminath? Neminath, N-E-M-I-N-A-T-H. Neminath is the 22nd Tirthankara in Jainism. Neminath is the 22nd Tirthankara in Jainism. Okay, and these are some of the most beautiful temples you will come across in India. I'm talking about a Dilwara group of temples. Now let's talk about the Kalinga style, another very important regional variation. Okay, Kaling. Okay, as we all know, Kaling coincides with, or Kaling corresponds with modern day region of Odisha. And Kaling style. Okay, now Kaling style, one of the most important temples is the Jagannath temple, which is located at Puri. Now Jagannath temple is very famous. Okay, Jagannath temple is very famous. See, Jagannath temple, you will get to see 3 wooden statues. Okay, you will get to see the I'm talking about the Garbhagriha. In the Garbhagriha, you will get to see 3 wooden statues. One is of Sri Krishna, the other is of his brother Balram, and the third statue is of their sister Subhadra. So 3 gods. Okay, 3 2 of them are gods and 1 is goddess. So 3 of them are worshipped in this particular temple. Okay, 3 of them are worshipped in this particular temple. And because the statues are made of wood, okay, because the statues are made of wood, they are being replaced with new statues every 12 years. Okay, because the statues are made of wood, and we know that wood is perishable in nature. We know that wood is perishable in nature, so these statues are replaced. Okay, these statues are replaced with new statues every 12 years. And this particular, it's a ritual. Okay, it's a full-fledged ritual. You cannot just replace the statues. It's a full-fledged ritual, okay, and it happens every 12 years. Now, this temple is also very famous because it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is one of the most important bhakti saints of the medieval time period, okay, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also said to have stayed in this temple. Okay, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also said to have stayed in this particular temple. So this is Jagannath Temple of Puri. Now let's talk about another very important temple which is today located in Odisha, and which the style is known as Kalinga style, and you know, that is the Sun Temple which is located at Konark. Now what is this Sun Temple? See, Sun Temple again is very important. Okay, Sun Temple, this particular temple is again very important. And one more thing you have to know, okay, one more thing you have to know, that Jagannath Temple was built by a ruler of the Ganga dynasty by the name of Anantavarman Choda Ganga. Okay, Anantavarman Choda Ganga. He was a ruler of the Ganga dynasty because Gangas were ruling over, Ganga dynasty was ruling over Kaling at that point in time. Okay, and the next, the next important temple, like I was talking about, the next important temple is what? The next important temple was the Sun Temple at Konark. Now it is at this temple, okay, it is at this temple that three, so basically it's very simple for us to understand. It's a sun temple, so in the Sun Temple, whom they will worship the sun god. So three sun gods are worshipped, okay, three sun gods, or you can say three kinds of sun are worshipped. Okay, in this particular temple, you will see that three kinds of sun are being worshipped. One is morning sun, okay, or you can also call it early sun, noon sun, and evening sun. Okay, early sun, noon sun, and evening sun. Okay, so three suns are being worshipped in this particular temple, and it is said that Rabindranath Tagore, the Nobel laureate and one of the greatest souls, okay, one of the greatest souls of India, he is also said to have been thoroughly impressed by the sculptural work that he saw in this particular temple. Okay, he famously said that the language of words, okay, the language of words fail. What it tried to mean was that, okay, what it tried to say was that no words can do justice. No words would be enough, or no words can do justice to the unparalleled or to the peerless beauty of the Sun Temple of Konark. And the third most important temple, which follows the Kalinga style, which is a sub part of what Nagara style of temple architecture, is the Bhubaneswar temple. Okay, Bhubaneswar temple, it is another temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. And Bhubaneswar temple, see, we all know the capital of Odisha today is Bhubaneswar. Okay, today it is Bhubaneswar. So this temple has given the city its name because it is located where? It is located at Bhubaneswar. It is not the other way around. The city has not given the temple its name. On the other hand, the temple, it is the temple by the name of Bhubaneswar temple that has given, okay, that has given the city, okay, that has given the city its name. And Bhubaneswar is another name for Lord Shiva. Okay, and sometimes this temple is also known as Lingaraja temple. Okay, it is also known as Lingaraja temple. So these were the most important regional variations of Nagara style of temple architecture. So in case you get a question on this, I hope you guys will be able to answer it. Okay. And by the way, Nagara style of temple architecture, okay, one more thing I'd like to say here, Nagara style of temple architecture, it got developed under the Guptas. And two of the earliest surviving temples, okay, which were built, or you can also call them the Gupta era temples. Okay, only two temples have survived from the Gupta era. Okay, and Nagara style of temple architecture itself got developed under the Guptas. And two of the earliest temples belonging to the Gupta period, which have managed to survive in a certain form, are number one, Dash Avatar temple. Okay, Dash Avatar temple located in the Deoghar district of Uttar Pradesh, and the other temple is Bhittargaon temple located at Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh. And both these temples were built in a Panchayatan style. What is the meaning of Panchayatan style? Panchayatan style means that right at the center, okay, right at the center, you will find one shrine. Okay, right at the center, you will find one shrine or temple, and surrounding that particular temple, you will find 4 more temples located in 4 different corners of that campus. Okay, that style is known as what? That style is known as Panchayatan style. Okay. Now let's talk about RIN mutiny. Okay, Royal Indian Navy, RIN stands for what? RIN stands for Royal Indian Navy, and we all know the meaning of mutiny. So what is the meaning of Royal Indian Navy? See, Royal Indian Navy is the Indian Navy which was in India under the British rule. Okay, the Britishers used to call it what? Royal Indian Navy. Today we call it Indian Navy. Okay, they used to call it Royal Indian Navy. So similarly, the Britishers used to have Royal Indian Army and Royal Indian Air Force also. Okay, they used to have, you know, the 3 most important wings. Okay, the 3 most important wings of what? The 3 most important wings of defense, okay, of a country. So Royal Indian Navy is the navy, okay, is the Indian Navy which was in India under the British. Or you can also say that it was what RIN means what? Royal Indian Navy. It was the colonial era navy. It was known as, the Britishers used to call it Royal Indian Navy. Now we are going to talk about a mutiny which happened in that particular Royal Indian Navy. Now see, now the first thing that you need to know, this mutiny or uprising, a kind of revolt, it happened in the year 1946. Now, who revolted? Who revolted? This revolt was started by Indian members of Royal Indian Navy. Now, okay, you should ask yourself, how could Indians become members of Royal Indian Navy? Because we are talking about the British rule in India. See, you need to understand one thing, okay? With more and more Indians getting educated, with more and more Indians getting the benefits of education, the Indians were able, okay, there were many Indians who were able to occupy the prestigious positions of officers. Okay, there were many Indians who were able to escalate themselves to the positions of officers in the Royal Indian Navy. What I'm trying to say is, okay, Hikkar Hohayot, with the help of modern education, with time, many Indians were also able to escalate themselves to the prestigious positions of officers in Royal Indian Navy. But even after that, okay, even after that, they were being discriminated, they were being subjected to racial discrimination. Even after that, the Indian members of Royal Indian Navy, the Indian officers who were Indian by birth, okay, the Indian officers of Royal Indian Navy were subjected to a lot of discrimination. Like for example, racial discrimination. They were not even given what? They were not even meted out proper treatment. They were not even meted out proper treatment. They were not even given the same kind of food. They were not even given the same kind of food which was given to their European counterparts. Okay, which was given to their European counterparts. On top of that, their places of residence was also very, very inferior. Okay, their places of residence was also inferior to the kind of place or to the kind of residence that was being offered to their European counterparts. And on top of that, okay, to make things even more worse, there were also instances of the Indian officers of Royal Indian Navy being beaten by boots. They were assaulted by boots by their superiors. Can you imagine? Now, because of all these, they were not getting proper food, they were not given a proper place to stay, they were racially discriminated, and they were being what? They were being humiliated at the slightest of opportunities. So because of all these reasons, they decided to revolt in 1946, and that is known as RIN mutiny. And now let's talk about some of the most important features of this particular mutiny. Now this particular mutiny was started by two ships. It was started by two ships. It was started by two units. Now these two, okay, these two units were, number one, okay, the name of one of the ships, okay, the name of one of the ships was Talwar. The name of one of the naval ships, the name of one of the naval ships, and this particular naval ship by the name of Talwar, it was stationed in Bombay. This particular ship was stationed in Bombay, and there was another ship by the name of Hindustan. It was stationed at Karachi. Okay, Hindustan was stationed at Karachi because Karachi at that point in time was a part of India. Okay, which now is one of the most important cities of Pakistan. Okay, I'm talking about that Karachi. It was stationed at Karachi. It was stationed at Karachi. Hindustan was stationed at Karachi, and Talwar, Talwar, Talwar was stationed at Mumbai. And the Indian officers, the Indian Navy officers of these two ships started this particular revolt, and this revolt became very big. This revolt became so big that it soon attracted the support. It soon attracted, already the Indians were fed up. Okay, already the Indians were fed up with the British rule. Already India had seen many mass movements under the able leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. So the Indians were fired up to attack the Britishers yet again, because they just wanted, by this time the Britishers, the Indians wanted to get rid of the Britishers by any means. So already the stage was set. So this gave them another opportunity. So this particular mutiny soon attracted the support of many Indians. Okay, many Indians, and you guys would not believe it. With time, the Royal Indian Navy, the Indian members of Royal Indian Navy also got the support of the members of Royal Indian Army. That was a very big setback for the Britishers. That was a very big setback for the Britishers, and it also hurt the prestige of the crown. It also hurt the prestige of the British crown. Why? See, because have you ever wondered how come a handful of Britishers were able to rule over Indians for around 200 years? How could just a handful of Britishers, how could they rule over us for around 200 years? Because there were many Indians, many Indians who were supporting them. They have to have the support of Indians. Without the support of Indians, how could they rule over us? And one of the most important supports they had were those Indians who were members of the British Army. Now this particular thing started mainly after the conquest of Bengal, when they started recruiting Indians in their army. And slowly and steadily, with the help of these Indians, they started consolidating their empire. Now that those Indians who were members of the British Army, they have also started supporting whom? The Indian members who were part of the RIN, and who were revolting. Now, one thing became very clear. Now, when the members of Royal Indian Navy also joined this particular protest, one thing became very clear. The Britishers, it was very clear to them that we are not going to last. Our rule in India is not going to last anymore, because we have lost one of our strongest pillars. Okay, we have lost one of our strongest pillars. So this is a very important feature of RIN mutiny. Other than that, another very important feature of RIN mutiny is that this particular mutiny, okay, this particular mutiny or protest, it saw what? It saw the coming together of three, it saw the coming together of the Indian National Congress. Okay, it saw the coming together of the three biggest forces of India at that point in time. Okay, it saw the coming together of Indian National Congress. Then there was the Muslim League, and there was the Communist Party of India, CPI. And how did the members, how did the people who were participating in this particular revolt and who later got attracted, how they were showing their unity? They wanted to exhibit their unity, and they exhibited their sense of unity by hoisting three flags at the same time. One flag was of Indian National Congress, the other flag was of the Muslim League, and the third flag was of the CPI, that is the Communist Party of India. Okay, they wanted to show their unity. Okay, they wanted to show religious unity, as well as they wanted to show ideological unity. So this is another very important feature of the RIN mutiny. The third most important feature of RIN mutiny is that it became, things became unmanageable for the British. Okay, why am I saying that the Britishers at this point in time, they became too weak? They became too weak to control this mutiny. They were no longer, they were no longer the powerful Britishers once they used to be. You also have to realize that at this point in time, okay, the back was also broken. Their back was also broken by the Second World War. Their backbone was broken by the Second World War. They got mired. They got stuck in a lot of financial debt. Okay, so they became less and less powerful. They became so powerful that they could not even control this mutiny, and they requested the Indian leaders to bring this mutiny under control, to rein in this mutiny. They turned to the Indian leaders, and then two Indian leaders, one was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, okay, one was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and the other was Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Okay, these two leaders, because of the initiative of these two leaders, that finally RIN mutiny came to an end. RIN mutiny came to an end because of the effort of these two leaders. So what is the significance of RIN mutiny? The significance of RIN mutiny lies in the fact that this mutiny made it absolutely clear, without the room, okay, without the room for the slightest of doubt, that British rule is about to end in India. Mainly because, number one, because the Indian members of the British Army have started revolting. Okay, the Indian members of the British Army, okay, British Army, it is the own people, okay, it is the British government's own people who have started revolting against them. And reason number two is what? That it became very apparent during the course of this mutiny that the Britishers had become too weak. They could not even control this particular movement. They requested the Indian leaders to control a movement which was started by Indians. Okay, so that is the significance of RIN mutiny. That is the Royal Indian Navy mutiny. Okay, so thank you so much. That will be all for today. I will soon be coming with another session. So please keep preparing for the upcoming APSC mains examination. Okay, thank you so much.